much, but so the Electoral College is actually something I've come to respect. But it's sort of like if you're a 100-yard dash guy or if you're a long-distance runner, you train differently. Well, if you're going for the Electoral College, that's a much different race. So if Hillary runs again in 4 years, which I hope she does, we're going to teach her. We're going to teach her to spend more time in Michigan. We're going to teach her to go to Wisconsin. We're going to teach her to spend a little more capability in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida, which she lost, and she actually spent a tremendous amount of money. So I just want to, because, you know, you hear so much about this. Remember this. If you're going for the Electoral College, it's a much different race. You don't spend your time in California and New York and these different places. You spend your time in Iowa and Ohio. Remember, you can't win unless you win Ohio. Well, we won Ohio by a lot because I spent a lot of time up there. But I would rather have the popular vote count because it's, for me, it would be easier than winning the Electoral College, which they said a Republican could not win, if you remember. Remember, they said there is no way to 270 for Trump. That's why I went to Maine 4 times, because I needed one. I needed one. They said there is no way. Well, we ended up at 306. There is no way. I guess they were right. No. Luther, they were right. They were 100% right. There is no way to 270, yes, but there is a way to 306, okay? So we won by a lot. But when you hear all this nonsense, when you're a golfer and you have match play, or you're a golfer and you have stroke play, different tournament, you train differently. Same with runners, same with lots of other things. So they have to learn their lesson. They have to campaign in areas that really matter. But we had such a great victory. It was just something that was awe-inspiring and something that I think everybody in this room will never, ever forget. And I appreciate the fact that the people of Alabama were with me right from the first day. And they said to me, don't come back, go to those other states that you have to win. I appreciate it. And by the way, folks, just in case you're curious, no, Russia did not help me. Okay? Russia. I call it the Russian hoax. One of the great hoaxes. Actually, that's the thing I was thinking about. That's the thing that the Democrats did best. They lost the election, and they didn't know what happened. Of running, but to convince people about this hoax, that was probably the thing that they did best, but it is one great hoax. No, Russia did not help me. That I can tell you, okay? Any Russians in the audience? Are there any Russians in the audience, please? I don't see too many Russians. I didn't see too many Russians in Pennsylvania. I didn't see too many Russians.
For 5 minutes. Mr. Brandon, you have been the acting director for 1 year and 11 months now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Turk and Mr. Temple work for you?
They do.
Why are they not here?
When we received the request, the invitation to testify, Mr. Chairman, I met with my team, consulted with DOJ, and wanted to quickly respond by having someone here from ATF, and that person would be me.
But the invitation was to yourself, Mr. Turk, and Mr. Temple, and you unilaterally decided that Mr. Turk and Mr. Temple would not be here?
No, I did not.
Who decided that Mr. Turk and Mr. Temple were not going to be here?
Well, the decision is theirs voluntarily. To let you know, Mr. Chairman, I didn't order them not to be here, and no one that I know of from the department ordered them not to be here.
So they personally chose not to be here?
That's their free decision, but also I agreed with it. I'm not going to duck anything here.
So they just decided that coming before Congress was an optional activity and that they were not going to do it. I think I understand. You understand that I have, do you know what a subpoena is, Mr. Brandon?
Yes, I do.
What does a subpoena require you to do?
to appear before the court or the legislative body in this case.
See this subpoena right here? I don't have to ask a judge. I don't need to get a vote here. We are now hereby subpoenaing here's one for Mr. Turk. He used to testify before this committee in a deposition on March 21st. Is there any reason he cannot attend at that time?
I don't believe so.
He will be served this subpoena. Mr. Temple, he's going to present himself for a deposition, which is a much more difficult thing than appearing before Congress. These things go on for hours under oath. Any reason he can't be here on March 22nd at 10 a.m.?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And you're the director, you're the acting director, so you can help make sure that his schedule is free to be here at that time?
I will make sure of that.
I just issued a subpoena for Mr. Temple as well. He will present himself before this committee. These are not optional exercises. Now, Mr. Kraft was given a little bit shorter notice. We're going to have that discussion with the Department of Justice. He was the minority witness that was requested by Mr. Cummings to be here. His non-presence is also totally and wholly unacceptable, and we'll figure out how to best move forward on him. These are not optional exercises. You're wasting this committee's time by allowing Mr. Turk and Mr. Temple to think anything other than when they're invited to come to Congress, they will come to Congress. And when I send you a notice on Thursday of last week for you to contact your department, your agency, your people, for them to contact our office last night in the 5 o'clock hour is totally and wholly unacceptable. There is no excuse for that, and we will not tolerate that. And if I need to issue a subpoena at the get-go, you tell me. We will do that every time because they should have been here today. And if you had given us the proper notice, as was laid out in the letter, which says that you will contact the committee by March 6th, which you did not, then we would have issued a subpoena and they'd be here today and we'd have a more full and complete hearing. And everybody in this audience, and especially the Zapata family, could hear from these people. Do we understand each other?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do. And I apologize if there was a communication as late as yesterday. I was under the understanding that there was communication. And if there was a subpoena, obviously they would be here. But I hear you loud and clear.
Chairman, would you yield?
Yes,
For a second. Mr. Brandon, I think the thing that concerned me more is when you said you agreed with the decision of them not to come. You understand the significance of a subpoena, do you not? And a request that your agents be here. But you just sat there and said you agreed with their decision. So apparently there was some back and forth, and you being their boss, I'm just trying to figure out, what part you played in all of that, because that bothers me. It also bothers me that, that the late getting back to us. I mean, I think we try to accommodate, but when we get a response the evening before, that's kind of rough. But tell me what part you played. And I just want to be clear on this.
Oh, thank you, sir.
You're their boss now, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We got the invitations, not subpoenas, and I was told that normally we would get more time to respond within a 14-day rule. We wanted to absolutely appear here and be prepared, and that in talking to the department, which had a lot of things going on with hearings, that this was the proper way to handle.
But you said you agreed. You said you agreed with the decision for them not to be here. See, that puts us in a kind of awkward position. We got the boss who says, okay, guys, you don't have to show up. And that sends a hell of a message. That's a problem. Come on now.
It was meant to be not anything disrespectful to this committee and trying to say, okay, who is going to represent the agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jaime Zapata was killed about 6 years ago. There's been an investigation for nearly 5 years. When did you get the report from the Department of Justice, the Inspector General? How long ago did you get the initial draft of the report?
The members of my team received the report, and it was the back and forth with edits. And I received it, I believe, approximately a month ago to read it.
Mr. Horwitz, do you have a more specific time?
I can get you a more specific time, but it would probably be about a month to 6 weeks ago if I can check and just get a more
So
refined.
your excuse that you needed more time, that it just ain't flying. Okay? When you had to know that we were deeply interested in this. And if you get the report 4 to 6 weeks ago, you're going back and forth with edits. My understanding is that members of the ATF actually got a draft in December. Mr. Horowitz?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It was
So you
December.
get it in December, and now your complaint is you didn't have enough time to prepare for this hearing. And that's why, in part, we invited Mr. Temple here, because my concern is 6 years after we had an American killed, an agent killed, that you all haven't got the lesson. So don't tell me that you need more time, because if you can't communicate to Congress that you get it and that you're implementing the changes, my guess is all those men and women, the thousands of people out in the field, they haven't gotten the message either. And that's the concern. That's the concern. Y'all try to dress it up so that you come to Congress and put the best looking picture it can. We want the raw truth of what's happening, what those men and women are having to deal with on the front lines. So the idea that you needed more time and we didn't get the customary 2 weeks is a load of crap. And you know it because you've had this since December. And that's my frustration. I could go on, but my time has expired.